For many people, the biggest problem they have with the Bible is not so much with Scripture itself, but with the way in which it is interpreted. We all know how people can pick and choose the parts that they're willing to accept. And sadly, we've all seen how people can misuse the Bible to pursue their own interests and to take advantage of others. So is there a right way to interpret the Bible? Some would say you have to read the Bible literally, but taking it literally can be misleading. It's better to speak of the natural sense or the plain sense of Scripture. Why? Because the natural sense is sometimes figurative. For example, in a well-known story in John chapter 3, Nicodemus misunderstands Jesus' teaching because he's being overly literal. He thinks he must enter into his mother's womb a second time in order to experience the new birth that Jesus describes. So if the natural sense is best, then what principles should guide us as we interpret the Bible? Let me offer three. First, you must read the Bible in light of its literary context. Like you would with any other text, pay attention to the grammatical structure of a sentence or a paragraph, and observe the genre of writing or the literary devices that the author employs. When you pick up a newspaper or an anthology of poems, you understand that you have two different genres of writing in your hands, and that the two should be interpreted differently. It's the same with Scripture. The Bible contains a variety of genres: narrative, letters, history, poetry, proverbs, parables, songs. The way in which you interpret a parable is not the same way in which you read a historical account of a battle. Second, you must read the Bible in light of its historical context. The Bible was written by a variety of different authors stretching across vast centuries and diverse cultures. So we should be careful not to universalize our own time or place. Rather, we should expect that some things in the Bible will be harder or easier for us to understand, depending upon our own cultural context. We should strive to determine the original context in which the words were written, in order to figure out the meaning and how it applies to our own day, rather than looking for a convenient excuse to lay it aside. Third, you must read the Bible in light of its biblical context. Though the Bible was written by many different authors, God remains the single primary author, which means that the overarching message of Scripture is consistent and coherent. And we can derive an important principle from that truth. Scripture interprets Scripture. There are many difficult passages in the Bible, but the central teachings are clear, especially concerning God's plan to rescue fallen humanity from sin, evil, and death. And therefore, we can use the clear teachings to interpret the confusing ones. And we should always consider the core claims of Christianity first, before deciding on more peripheral issues. So if you want to read the Bible rightly, you have to interpret it in light of its literary context, its historical context, and its biblical context. But you'll never understand the Bible unless you know its central theme: to reveal Jesus and His mission to the world. Some verses point directly to Jesus, others are more remote, but eventually they all lead to Jesus. Old English commentators like to use this analogy. Just as every little lane and road in England, not in isolation, but linking up together, will eventually lead you to London, so every verse and chapter in the Bible, not in isolation, but linking up together, will eventually lead you to Jesus. So how should you interpret the Bible? The same way Jesus did. It's not a book of moral instruction, it's a book of Christ. So when you read the Bible, look for Jesus and keep looking until you find Him. I'd love to hear from you, and in fact, that'd be a great help to me. I want to know what's on your mind, so if you have questions or comments about what I've shared, or if there are other topics you'd like me to address, leave a comment below or send me an email at seniorpastor@centralchurchnyc.org. Thanks for watching.